Usually when we talk about like a structural collapse, there's this expectation of these really obvious, glaring warning signs.
Right, like something you can physically see.
Exactly. Think about structural engineering. If you look at a bridge that's failing, you can see the massive, jagged crack right there in the concrete.
Yeah, or the rusted steel cables just sort of fraying in the wind.
Yeah. And the safety inspector just points a flashlight at it and says, there it is. That's the point of failure. That's why the whole thing came crashing down.
Right, because it's visible. I mean, it's entirely physical.
Yeah.
And on a psychological level, that visibility is incredibly comforting to us.
Oh, for sure.
We prefer the threats to our stability to be tangible things we can measure or photograph and just point to with absolute certainty.
It's binary, right? It's either broken or it's not broken. But then, and this is what we're getting into today, you step out of the physical world and into the realm of human relationships.
Which is incredibly messy.
So messy. Specifically, the incredibly complex architecture of romantic commitment. And suddenly that structural engineering manual is, well, it's worse than useless.
Yeah, it really is.
We're looking at a landscape where the forces that tear down the bridge are entirely invisible.
It's the absolute definition of a threat coming from inside the house.
Right.
It's like an invisible pathogen that attacks the foundation, but the paint on the outside of the house still looks perfectly fresh and intact.
And if you're the kind of person who craves understanding the mechanics beneath the surface, if you're a learner who doesn't just want to skim the summary, but really wants to know the why and the how behind human behavior, this is where things get truly fascinating.
Absolutely.
Today, we are taking a deep dive into a massive paradigm shift regarding one of the oldest, most misunderstood, and frankly, most agonizing emotions in the human playbook.
The green-eyed monster.
The green-eyed monster, jealousy. But we are pulling it apart in a way that goes completely against the cultural grain. We've got a really compelling source for this deep dive.
We do.
It's an extensive, incredibly thought-provoking article, and it's titled Decoding Jealousy, and a bit on fantasy cheating. The green-eyed monster is wiser than you think. And our mission today is basically to flip everything you thought you knew about jealousy on its head.
What's fascinating here is that Usher fundamentally argues that everything we've been taught about jealousy, the idea that it's a byproduct of love, is completely backward.
Completely backward.
Yeah. The core premise we're unpacking today is that jealousy might actually be rooted in self-love.
Self-love. Wow.
Yeah, self-love, ego protection, and psychological projection, rather than any actual affection or concern for a partner.
It's a profound shift in perspective because culturally we've just absorbed this narrative, right? Through centuries of literature and movies and every pop song ever written.
Oh, yeah. The media loves it.
We're taught that jealousy is just a symptom of caring too much. The trope. Oh, they're just jealous because I mean so much to them.
Right, yeah.
But the perspective we're exploring today suggests it's often a symptom of caring about yourself.
Yes.
Of protecting your own ego and desperately trying to hide your own internal missteps. We're going to see how jealousy acts less like a magnifying glass, examining your partner's flaws, and much more like a mirror.
A mirror reflecting your own internal guilt.
Exactly. Reflecting your guilt and the chaotic management of your own your mental real estate.
And we really have to start by looking at how society sort of sits on the fence when it comes to this emotion, particularly what we might call quiet jealousy.
Right. The subtle stuff.
Yeah. There is a strong tendency to romanticize it. The logic basically goes, if my partner experiences a flash of jealousy when someone else looks at me, well, that serves as proof of my value.
It's an ego boost.
Exactly. It's an evolutionary security blanket. It validates our worth in the mating market.
It's framed as endearing, like this tiny badge of loyalty. But Usher takes a total sledgehammer to that romanticized fence.
He really does.
The argument here is that even a low-simmering, quiet jealousy is fundamentally an ugly emotion. I mean, it's described in the text at one point as a pit of slime.
Pit of slime.
And it's incredibly dangerous because of what it actually does to the brain's perception of reality. It plants these seeds that grow into hallucinatory imagery.
That concept of hallucinatory imagery is crucial to understand from a cognitive perspective.
Break that down for us.
So, when a person feels that spike of jealousy, their brain is suddenly just flooded with stress hormones, like cortisol.
Right, the panic response.
Exactly. And the brain hates a vacuum of information, especially when it's stressed out.
Yeah.
So if it doesn't have concrete evidence of a threat, it simply invents it.
It just makes it up.
It makes it up to justify the physical feeling of panic. cognitive dissonance kicks in.
So you start seeing things that aren't there.
Suddenly, you aren't just seeing your partner talk to a coworker. Your brain literally hallucinates a flirtatious undertone that completely does not exist.
Oh, wow.
A lingering glance becomes an affair. A polite smile becomes this secret, coded invitation.
Your brain is basically generating deepfakes of your own life to justify why you feel anxious.
Deepfakes.
That was a great way to put it.
And the tragedy here is the collateral damage. Because this wild jealousy, it infects the innocent partner.
Oh, deeply.
Imagine being subjected to this relentless, subtle questioning and suspicion when you've done absolutely nothing wrong.
It's exhausting.
It is. Over time, that constant ambient suspicion can make the innocent person feel like they are inherently untrustworthy. It's a toxicity that just spreads through the whole ecosystem of the relationship.
To understand how a relationship survives or, fails to survive in the presence of that toxicity, there's a brilliant metabolic metaphor we need to look at from the source material.
The plant analogy. I loved this part.
Yeah, it's so vivid. Think of a healthy relationship as a plant. In this ecosystem, trust is the carbon dioxide you give the plant every time you breathe on it.
Okay, trust is the CO2, right? And passion is the oxygen it creates and returns to you. It's this continuous natural exchange that keeps the environment breathable.
Okay, let's unpack this because I have to play devil's advocate for a second.
All for it.
Let's really test the boundaries of this hardline stance against all jealousy. If trust is the carbon dioxide and passion is the oxygen, isn't a tiny microscopic bit of jealousy just, I don't know, the wind that makes the plant's roots grow stronger?
The wind?
Yeah, like if the air in a greenhouse is perfectly still all the time, the plants actually grow weak, they topple over. Doesn't a slight breeze of vulnerability remind you not to take the relationship for granted?
That's a very common human intuition for sure.
Yeah.
The idea that a little friction creates necessary warmth.
Right.
But if we look closer at the mechanics of this ecosystem, according to Usher, the danger is that jealousy doesn't act like wind.
It doesn't.
No. Wind is an external force testing the structure. Jealousy is an internal blockage. It's a localized drought. When you introduce jealousy, you are actively cutting off the carbon dioxide supply. You stop trusting, which means you stop feeding the plant.
Wow.
And when that supply is choked off, the passionate, the oxygen, simply cannot survive. The relationship literally asphyxiates.
So it's not a breeze testing the roots, it's a plastic bag over the leaves.
Precisely. It suffocates the plant.
Bro.
And the framework goes even further into the physics of this breakdown.
Oh, so?
It's not just that the plant dies and leaves you with nothing. Sometimes the energy flips polarities.
Flips polarities.
Yeah. Nature abhors a vacuum, right? When the positive oxygen-producing passion starves, it doesn't always just fade to a neutral state. It can flip into a violent, destructive, negative passion.
Oh, man.
The energy that used to draw you together suddenly repels you with equal force. The relationship becomes actively harmful.
Flips polarities. That makes so much sense of those breakups that are just incredibly explosive.
Exactly.
It wasn't that they stopped caring. It was that the massive battery of their relationship got wired backward.
Wired backward, yes.
But this brings up a massive logistical question for me. If trust is the invisible environment a relationship grows in, and passion is the oxygen we get back, how do our brains actually measure the health of that environment?
Because we aren't asking each other.
Right. We aren't constantly asking each other, hey, what's your passion output level today? Give me a percentage.
We don't ask verbally, no. We measure it entirely subconsciously through a highly specific, continuously evolving physical vocabulary.
The lover's language.
Yes, the lover's language. And this is where the abstract metaphors become very tangible, biological reality.
Right, because this isn't about grand romantic speeches or writing poetry. The lover's language is the subconscious body language of intimacy, lust, and connection.
Yeah.
But how do two people actually write this dictionary? I mean, it's not something you establish on a third date.
It's an evolutionary process driven by extreme proximity. Think about the sheer volume of data two partners collect on each other over months and years.
It's a massive data set.
Huge. You are observing every mundane and profound moment. You watch them sleep. You watch them burn toast. You watch them react to a bad email.
Yeah.
Through that constant repetition, your brain, specifically your mirror neurons, which are responsible for empathy and mimicking behavior, builds a unique neural code.
A code just for them.
Exactly. You start to read each other's micro-expressions unemotionally and instantly.
You essentially become a highly specialized supercomputer trained on a data set of one specific person.
That is the perfect way to describe it.
You know what a specific exhale means. You know the exact difference between a touch on the shoulder that means I'm exhausted and a touch that means I want you.
Exactly. And as the individual grows and changes, their physical code subtly evolves.
Right.
But because you are right there with them in the trenches, your understanding of their language updates in real time.
You're downloading the patches as they happen.
Right. You are fluent in a dialect spoken by exactly two people on Earth.
Now, there's a specific biological dynamic brought up here that we need to unpack because it highlights exactly why this language is so incredibly sensitive.
Yes. The text gets into some biology here.
Right. The premise suggests that, biologically speaking, men are often highly visual, and hormonal triggers can spark intimate fantasies relatively easily when seeing an attractive person. Now, regardless of how universally we apply that specific gender dynamic, the underlying point being made is about the impossibility of hiding it.
That's the crucial takeaway. The framework isn't using biological triggers as an excuse for wandering eyes. Not at all.
Good.
It's using them to emphasize the absolute terrifying necessity of internal control.
Okay, terrifying is a good word for it.
Because the lover's language is so exquisitely tuned, you cannot hide a private indulgence. You might think you are just quietly having a harmless fantasy in your own head, but your body is betraying you.
Oh, wow.
Your pupil dilation, the microscopic tension in your jaw, the slight shift in your breathing, your partner's supercomputer reads the code instantly. The body betrays the mind.
The body betrays the mind. And that explains the ambient anxiety that can suddenly infect a relationship out of nowhere.
It really does.
Let's say the passion and attention are being split. Maybe it's not even a person at first. Maybe it's a massive new project at work or an addiction to a new hobby. Or, yes, a burgeoning interest in someone else.
Right.
The partner starts to feel neglected, but they can't articulate why. There's no smoking gun. There's no lipstick on the collar.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the feeling of neglect is completely subconscious. It comes from the fact that the subtle vocal tones, the specific cadences of conversation, the microscopic movements, the code they rely on for a sense of safety have deteriorated.
It's failing.
The signal is suddenly just full of static.
I think we all intuitively know this feeling, but it's hard to put into words. Let's try to map it to something modern.
Okay.
Think about your smartphone. Imagine you have a favorite app you've used every single day for 3 years.
Okay, yeah.
Your thumb has pure muscle memory for where the buttons are. Your brain knows exactly how the physics of the swipe feels. Then, overnight, the developers push a microscopic update to the user interface.
Uh-oh.
They move the main menu button 2 millimeters to the left, and they change the drop shadow by a fraction of a pixel.
A completely undocumented change.
Exactly. When you open it the next morning while drinking your coffee, you can't point out what changed. If someone asked you to draw the difference on a piece of paper, you'd fail.
Right.
But your brain instantly flags it. It feels wrong. It creates this bizarre subconscious friction, almost a shiver down your spine, because the physical code you relied on has been stealthily altered.
That is a brilliant way to conceptualize it. That shiver down the spine is exactly what a partner feels when the lover's language gets an unauthorized UI update.
The unauthorized update.
Yeah. Your brain detects the change in their affection long before your conscious mind catches up. You feel the deterioration because their processing power is divided. The old interface, meaning UB, is getting less bandwidth than their new focus.
But this leads us to what I think is the biggest mind bender of this whole exploration, like a total paradigm shift.
Okay, let's hear it.
We've been talking about the shiver down the spine caused by our partner changing their code. But what if that shiver isn't caused by them at all? What if we're the ones who push the bad update to our own internal code and we are just blaming them for the glitch?
Now we are wading into the deepest, most uncomfortable waters of human psychology.
It's dark in here.
It is. This is projection and self-sabotage. This is the mirror of guilt. And it's arguably the most provocative assertion in the entire framework.
Break it down.
It's the idea that when we feel threatened by our partner, when we are consumed by jealousy over them looking at someone else, we are rarely actually worried about their behavior. We are terrified of our own.
It's a complete inversion of the victim narrative.
Yep.
The idea is that we don't realize it, but we project our own internal hidden world onto our lover. Because our emotional bond with them is so strong, they basically function like a giant silver movie screen for our own subconscious guilt.
That's a great image.
Let's walk through the mechanics of this because it's wild.
Mm.
Say someone is harboring what the framework calls impure thoughts. Maybe it's a woman having detailed, ongoing fantasies about a new guy at her office.
Okay.
She hasn't done anything physical, but the mental cinematic universe is running daily.
Well, the human mind is highly intolerant of unresolved guilt.
Right.
It creates intense cognitive dissonance to view yourself as a loyal, loving partner while simultaneously running a private cinematic universe about someone else.
You can't be both.
Exactly. To resolve that tension, the ego employs its favorite defense mechanism,
Yeah.
psychological projection. We take our own internal misbehavior, pack it into a box, and hand it to our partner.
We paste our sins onto them. The scenario used in the source to illustrate this is chillingly relatable.
The restaurant scene.
Yes, the restaurant scene. So you're the one harboring these thoughts about the coworker. You go out to dinner with your partner, and your partner casually glances across the restaurant at another attractive person.
Just a glance.
Just a total normal glance. Suddenly, the guilty person, the one projecting, is hit with a massive spike of jealousy fueled by two very specific, terrifying fears. Fear A is all about discovery.
Yes, fear A. He is going to find out about your thoughts.
Paranoia.
Exactly. Because you intuitively know that the lover's language works both ways. Your own guilt makes you paranoid. You see him looking around, and your panic translates that as his radar being up.
You think he's searching for clues?
You assume his glance isn't just a glance, it's an investigation. You are terrified he is reading your corrupted code.
But fear B is even more insidious.
It really is.
Fear B is, he is going to do it too, and it will destroy you. Because you know exactly how powerful, intoxicating, and distracting your own private fantasies about the coworker have been, you are suddenly terrified that your partner is experiencing the exact same detachment from the relationship.
Yes.
You assume he is doing exactly what you did.
It's a psychological house of mirrors. You are terrified of a ghost that you yourself released into the room.
That is so dark.
And the real-world consequences of this projection are devastating. This is where we see the tragic irony of jealousy play out. The guilty partner, driven by their own unconfessed mental infidelity, will begin to obsessively overanalyze entirely innocent interactions.
Like the example of a guy just saying thank you to a waitress.
Exactly. A man might say thank you to a waitress with a polite smile, maybe a little natural twinkle in his eye, simply because he's having a nice evening.
Right, he's just in a good mood.
But the guilty partner isn't seeing the reality of the interaction. They are straining his polite smile through the dense filter of their own hidden guilt. They label his actions according to their own internal fear.
They are essentially seeing their own crime reflected in his smile.
Yes, and this inevitably leads to irrational, aggressive accusations. Why did you look at her that way? What were you thinking?
And he's just sitting there like, what are you talking about?
The innocent partner is completely bewildered. But the true tragedy, the darkest outcome of this entire cycle, is that relentless, irrational jealousy can actually create the infidelity it fears.
It's a self-fulfilling prophecy.
It is. When an innocent partner is constantly interrogated, suspected, and punished for crimes they haven't committed, a highly destructive logic can take root in their mind.
What logic?
The logic becomes, if I'm going to be constantly judged, convicted, and hung for this crime regardless of my innocence, I might as well actually commit it.
Wow. The constant accusation builds the very reality the jealous person was terrified of. But, okay, I have to pause here because we need to be careful about sweeping generalizations.
Fair enough.
So, what does this all mean? Is the implication here that all jealousy is a confession of our own bad behavior? Like, if I feel a pang of jealousy, does that automatically mean I am secretly harboring some dark, repressed desire to cheat?
No, it's an important distinction to make. The framework doesn't claim that 100% of jealousy in human history is pure projection.
Okay, good.
It acknowledges that deep-seated self-esteem issues, childhood attachment trauma, or past betrayals, those can all create intense insecurity that manifests as jealousy.
Sure, that makes sense.
However, it strongly argues that in otherwise healthy, functioning relationships, this projection mechanism is the primary driver of sudden, destructive paranoia.
The out-of-nowhere stuff.
Right. To synthesize this, the text offers a very stark, unforgiving rule of thumb for managing your mental real estate.
The golden rule. If you can't take it happening to you, don't do it to them. And the crucial detail here is that this rule applies to thoughts, not just physical actions.
That is the core philosophy. Thoughts are not benign. They do not just swim around harmlessly in a quarantined section of your brain.
They don't stay in Vegas?
No, they don't. When you indulge in a hidden fantasy, you are actively constructing a psychological filter. And once that filter is built, every single thing your partner does is strained through it. You literally warp your own perception of your relationship.
You build a filter and strain the rest of the world through it. That is a terrifyingly accurate description of how our internal monologue shapes our external reality.
I think it really is.
And it perfectly sets up the next crucial piece of this puzzle. Because if our thoughts are the architects of our reality, how exactly do seemingly harmless private daydreams end up bulldozing a solid relationship? Let's look at the mechanics of fantasy cheating.
The warning here from Usher is completely unambiguous.
How?
Fantasizing is the on-ramp to physical infidelity.
An on-ramp.
It is not viewed as a harmless private cinema. It is the first acceleration toward the cliff.
The on-ramp. I really appreciate that terminology because an on-ramp implies momentum. You aren't on the highway yet, you haven't merged into traffic, but you are actively accelerating, and you're heading in one specific, undeniable direction.
Right.
Why is this internal momentum considered so dangerous?
To understand the danger, we have to look at the philosophy of how relationships are constructed. The assertion here is that 80% of a romantic relationship exists purely on the mental and emotional planes.
80%.
80%. The physical actions, living together, going on dates, physical intimacy, that only accounts for roughly 20%.
That's wild.
The vast, overwhelming majority of the bond is forged, maintained, or destroyed in the mind.
And when you frame it like that, the mind isn't just a storage closet for stray thoughts. It's the entire foundation of the house.
It is. And to hammer this home, the framework leans into concepts from psychology, elements of karma, and the broader idea that thoughts become things.
It's like those documentaries, right? The Secret or What the Bleep Do We Know?
Yes, exactly. Now, whether a listener subscribes to the metaphysical aspects of manifestation or purely the cognitive behavioral psychology of it, the mechanism is the same.
Which is?
You cannot cordon off a section of your brain and declare it a consequence-free fantasy zone. The walls of the mind are highly permeable. The fantasy always leaks into reality.
Yeah, always leaks. And the most destructive way it leaks is through what we can call the unfair advantage. This was one of the most granding, relatable concepts in this entire deep dive for me.
It hits hard.
When you fantasize about someone else, the barista, the guy at the gym, the coworker, you are forcing your actual flesh and blood partner into a competition with a phantom.
A meticulously curated, idealized phantom.
Exactly. This phantom doesn't have a mortgage, they don't have credit card debt, they never leave their wet towels on the floor.
Who?
They don't have to navigate the stress of raising kids or dealing with a broken water heater or just the sheer exhaustion of daily life. Your real partner is in the muddy trenches of life with you, carrying the heavy weight of shared existence. The fantasy person is just floating on a cloud of flawless lighting and endless free time. It is a completely rigged game.
It's an assessment that the real partner can never, ever win. Because reality can never compete with a frictionless void.
You can't beat perfection.
You spend hours working up this fantasy person in your mind, making them infinitely more desirable, patient, and exciting than any real human could ever be. And then, subconsciously, you punish your actual partner for failing to measure up to an illusion you invented.
Let's expand on this with an analogy because I think it helps ground it. Imagine you have a reliable everyday car. You drive it to work. You take it to get groceries.
Okay.
It has a few dings on the door. The upholstery has a coffee stain from 3 years ago. And you have to sit in brutal, soul-crushing traffic with it every single morning. It represents the grind of real life.
A daily driver.
The daily driver. Now imagine you start obsessively staring at a magazine spread of a multi-million-dollar concept car. It's sleek. It has gull-wing doors. It looks breathtaking under the studio lights.
A masterpiece of design.
Right. But here's the catch. The concept car doesn't even have a working engine. It's just a fiberglass shell.
Yeah.
It has never had to navigate a pothole.
It's never parallel parked.
Never. It has never needed an oil change. It has never been stuck behind a garbage truck in the pouring rain. If you start resenting your daily driver, the car that actually gets you where you need to go because it isn't as glamorous as the hollow fiberglass shell in the magazine, you are driving yourself crazy over a fiction.
Yeah.
You are destroying something real because of a picture.
That perfectly captures the dynamic. This raises an important question, though, about the breakdown.
Yeah.
How does this internal unfair comparison manifest externally?
Right, because it leaks.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We've established the thoughts don't stay hidden. What does the leakage actually look like in the day-to-day 20% of the relationship?
It snowballs. It starts with a sudden, inexplicable loss of patience.
Yes.
The little quirks your partner has, the way they chew their food, the way they tell a story, things you used to find endearing or just neutral, suddenly become profoundly, gratingly annoying.
Because they aren't the phantom.
Right. You withdraw your emotional investment. You stop asking about their day with any real curiosity. The temperature in the room just drops.
And the most maddening part for the innocent partner is that they have absolutely no idea why they are suddenly freezing. The thermostat controlling the relationship is hidden inside the fantasizer's head, and they've secretly turned it all the way down.
Which brings us to perhaps the most intense, chilling consequence of this mental shift. Because the ultimate cost of this unfair comparison isn't just paid at the breakfast table while arguing over bills.
No, it's not.
It's paid in the most vulnerable, intimate moments between two people, when fantasies invade the bedroom.
This is where the concept of mental real estate has its most visceral, undeniable impact. We're looking at the incredibly damaging scenario of using a fantasy of another person to artificially spice up a stale, intimate moment with your actual partner.
Right. The relationship has gone stale, which, let's connect the dots, is likely because the internal fantasizing already drained the oxygen out of the room. So, to generate a physical spark during intimacy, the person closes their eyes and mentally replaces their partner with the fantasy object. They are mapping the phantom over the reality in real time.
The fallout from this act is devastating, even if it's never spoken aloud. On a purely physiological level, the physical energy in the room might suddenly seem very high.
Because of the novelty.
Right. But on a spiritual and emotional level, the core of the relationship is being actively gutted. The actual partner is being overridden.
They're being erased.
Exactly. The fantasizer is physically present, but mentally they have completely abandoned the room. They're essentially using their partner's body as a prop for their own private movie.
And you might think, well, if it's entirely inside their head, how could the partner ever possibly know?
But they do know.
Here's where it gets really interesting. We have to go back to the supercomputer, the lover's language, the code.
Yes.
The framework provides this incredibly visceral tell that proves the partner's subconscious knows exactly what is happening, even if they can't articulate it.
The tell is astonishingly specific, and it's rooted in the neurology of shame.
What is it?
The observation from Usher is that after this happens, the innocent partner might be momentarily astonished by the sudden burst of physical energy. They might think, wow, where did that come from?
Right.
But the fantasizer will be completely unable to look them dead in the eyes afterward.
They won't look them in the eyes. Because the cognitive dissonance of staring into the soul of the human being you just mentally erased and replaced is simply too much for the brain to bear.
It's overwhelming guilt.
The guilt forces the eyes to avert. The lack of eye contact reveals the mental displacement.
It is a profound betrayal of that 80% mental plane. By doing this, the argument is that either actual physical cheating is inevitably going to follow, or the relationship will simply bleed out its remaining passion, and neither person will consciously understand the cause of death.
It's a silent killer.
It operates as a silent killer.
Right. Okay, I have to step in and push back on the practical application of this. There's another rule of thumb proposed here. If you can't talk about it with your lover, then it's a toxic thought, so stop before it hurts your relationship.
Right.
The suggestion is that you shouldn't indulge in any detailed fantasies you couldn't openly share. I mean, isn't that an impossibly high, almost tyrannical standard for the human brain?
It sounds like thought policing.
Total mental transparency. We all have weird, random, fleeting thoughts. The brain throws up bizarre imagery all the time. Are we supposed to police every stray synapse 24 hours a day and confess every microscopic thought crime to our partner?
That is a very valid critique, and it highlights the immense psychological difficulty of what's being proposed. However, to clarify the intent of the framework, it isn't suggesting you must confess every random intrusive image that flashes across your consciousness.
Okay.
The key word is indulging. It specifically targets the deliberate, repeated cultivation of a mental alternate reality.
Okay.
It's the difference between a thought happening to you and you actively feeding the thought.
So it's the difference between noticing someone is attractive walking down the street and actively writing a screenplay about them in your head.
Precisely. The core thesis remains. To be 100% committed means you are committed in body, spirit, and mind.
Mind included.
If you find yourself constantly, willfully returning to a detailed fantasy about someone else, you have to treat it as a glaring, undeniable diagnostic symptom that your relationship is stagnating.
It's an alarm bell.
It's a huge alarm bell. You can't control the birds flying over your head, but you don't have to invite them down and let them build a permanent nest in your hair. The warning is against building the nest.
I really like that distinction. Don't build the nest. So we've established that fantasizing about coworkers or strangers or the barista corrupts the lover's language. It introduces massive static into the signal.
Right.
But what happens when the stranger causing the static isn't a stranger at all? What happens when the threat is someone who already fluently speaks your partner's exact language?
Ah, yes. The ghosts of relationships past.
The exes.
This brings us to the unique torment of the X factor and the fascinating concept of subconscious sync.
This is such a universal pain point. The discussion shifts to why past lovers trigger the most intense, visceral, paralyzing jealousy of all. Way more than the hot waitress, way more than the coworker.
Oh, without a doubt.
And the reason is that an ex has one distinct, terrifying advantage. They are still partially in sync with your partner's physical code.
They don't just know the code. They helped write massive sections of it.
Yeah.
To understand this, we have to look at the mechanics of the cooling off period. When a long-term relationship ends, there is supposed to be a neutralizing phase. Over time, as a person heals and eventually enters a new relationship, their neuroplasticity allows them to adapt.
They update the app.
Exactly. Their body language cues, their subtle tells, their specific ways of touching. They begin to overwrite the old code and tailor themselves to the new partner. The internal landscape shifts to accommodate the new reality.
But the old code doesn't just vanish overnight. It leaves traces. Muscle memory.
Exactly. And when an ex suddenly reappears in the physical environment, say you run into them at a party or a wedding or whatever, the jealous new partner doesn't see the years of subtle shifting and tailoring.
No, they're just seeing red.
Their threat detection system is instantly hyperactivated, and they only see the micro-similarities in how the ex and their lover interact. They see a shared glance, a familiar cadence in how they stand next to each other, and the jealous brain immediately bypasses logic and jumps to the absolute worst possible conclusion.
And there is an incredible, almost theatrical irony in this exact moment at the party. Let's set the scene, because it's so tragic, but so funny.
Okay.
The three of you are standing near the buffet. Your partner is politely interacting with their ex. You, the jealous current lover, are watching them like a hawk, completely obsessed with the ex's every move, analyzing every microscopic shift in posture.
Sweating bullets.
Exactly. The profound irony is that in that exact moment, your partner might be looking at their ex and thinking, my God, I am so incredibly relieved I met you, and I never have to deal with this person's nonsense ever again.
The partner is internally celebrating their current relationship. They are experiencing deep gratitude for you.
Right.
But because the jealous partner is obsessively focusing their attention on the outdated body language that doesn't actually mean anything anymore, they completely misinterpret the reality of the room. They read the leftover, familiar muscle memory as active present-day flirting.
It's like imagine watching your partner do a highly choreographed muscle memory dance routine with their old dance partner.
Okay.
They step onto the floor, the music starts, and their bodies just fall into the steps. They know exactly when the other person is going to spin. They know exactly how to catch them in a dip. To you, watching from the sidelines, it looks incredibly intimate.
It looked like pure passion.
It looks like they share a deep, unbreakable psychic connection. But realistically, inside your partner's head, they are just on autopilot. They're just letting muscle memory take over so they don't step on anyone's toes. And they might actually be thinking, God, this routine is so outdated and boring. I really wish I was dancing the new routine with my current partner.
That analogy perfectly isolates the illusion. The physical synchronicity you are witnessing is merely a relic of the past. It is absolutely not a promise of the future.
Right.
The landscape of a human being is ever evolving. The physical cues change as the person matures. But the panic of jealousy completely blinds us to that evolution.
We just see the old dance.
The profound advice here is that if you simply shifted your focus off the ex and actively focused on your partner's present reality, you would see that the old body language actually conflicts with who your partner has become.
Wow.
But instead, we project our deepest insecurities onto a meaningless interaction, creating unnecessary chaos.
So if we pull back and look at the map of everything we've covered, we have navigated an absolute psychological minefield today.
A literal minefield.
We have the internal projection, where we use our partner as a movie screen for our own guilt. We have the unfair advantage of fantasy cheating, draining the oxygen out of the daily reality. We have the lingering muscle memory code of the exes triggering false alarms.
It's a lot.
It's a lot. With all these invisible traps surrounding the foundation of a relationship, how do we actually survive? How do we protect and manage our mental real estate so the bridge doesn't collapse?
The ultimate overarching solution proposed in the text requires profound emotional bravery.
Bravery.
Yes, it calls for absolute, radical, open communication.
Yeah.
We must create an environment where we do not force our partners to hide their thoughts.
And how do we do that?
Well, the most critical, difficult part of this execution,
Yeah.
we cannot punish them when they do share those thoughts.
Right. Because the moment they take a risk and confess a fleeting thought or a moment of vulnerability, and you explode with jealousy, anger, and accusations,
You've lost them.
you have just trained them to never tell you the truth again. You have single-handedly forced them to start building that hidden mental room where the destructive fantasies are born. You handed them the blueprints for secrecy.
Exactly. You become the architect of your own betrayal. To build on how to actually achieve this level of communication, there's a strong recommendation in the source to engage with resources focused on self-reflection. Specifically, citing Dr. Phil's book, Relationship Rescue.
Okay, Dr. Phil.
Yeah. But the crucial takeaway highlighted from that material is highly counterintuitive to how most people approach relationship advice. The point is that true relationship rescue is not about learning how to fix your partner.
Which is, ironically, exactly what 99% of people who buy those books want to do.
Of course it is.
They want a step-by-step manual on how to rewire the other person. They're like, tell me how to fix them.
It's much easier to focus on someone else's flaws. But the hard truth emphasized here is that it's about resolving yourself.
Resolving yourself.
It is about doing the grueling internal work so that you can react to your partner's humanity with more emotional intelligence, more patience, and more compassion. The definitive takeaway is, you can't change her, you can change yourself.
Wow.
It is about taking total, uncompromising ownership of your own emotional reactions and the cleanliness of your own mental real estate.
And what makes this framework so compelling is that it isn't just preached from some detached academic ivory tower. There's a surprisingly vulnerable personal success story woven into this to prove the efficacy of the mechanics.
Yes, the author's own story.
The author applied these exact principles of brutal self-reflection and absolute ownership to their own life. And in doing so, they realized that the relationship they were currently in was irreparably toxic.
They finally saw the reality.
They realized it couldn't be saved, precisely because they finally wiped the mirror clean and saw the mechanics of their dynamic clearly.
It takes immense clarity and courage to recognize when a foundation is truly rotted through, rather than just in need of cosmetic repair. Sometimes, cleaning up your mental real estate means realizing you have to move out of the house entirely.
So they walk away, they pack up their life and move to Bend, Oregon, which is just such a wonderfully specific, grounding detail.
I love that detail.
They mentioned that they previously assumed Oregon was just, wildlife and trees. But upon arriving with this new, clear mindset, they discover it is absolute paradise on earth. And a year later, in this new physical and mental state, having done the heavy internal work, they meet their true love.
That anecdote isn't just a quaint, happy ending. It functions as the ultimate proof of concept for everything we've discussed today. Think about the mechanics of manifestation we explored earlier.
The thoughts become things.
The idea that thoughts become things, that your mental state dictates your physical reality. By taking absolute responsibility for their own internal world, by refusing to live in the toxic cycle of projection, jealousy, and punishment, they literally changed their physical environment.
They moved across the country.
They manifested a completely different, healthier reality because they stopped running corrupted code.
You clean up the 80% that is mental and emotional, and the 20% physical reality where you live, the air you breathe, who you love, naturally follows suit and flourishes. It reorganizes itself around your new health.
Precisely. It is a testament to the immense power of internal alignment. When you stop fighting invisible ghosts, you finally have the energy to build something real.
All right, if you're listening to this right now, whether you are on a commute, walking the dog, or just sitting at home, let's take a deep breath and synthesize the massive paradigm shift we've unpacked today.
It's been a journey.
It really has. We started by looking at jealousy not as a warm, fuzzy measure of how much you love someone, but as a harsh mirror reflecting your own hidden guilt or insecurities.
Right.
We explored the incredible biological supercomputer of the lover's language and how it detects a shift in processing power before your conscious mind even realizes the app has updated.
The shiver down the spine.
We learned that indulging in detailed mental fantasies isn't a victimless crime. It's an unfair, rigged competition that drains the oxygen out of your real-world relationship and can literally poison the intimacy in your bedroom.
And ultimately, we learned that true, lasting commitment isn't just about physical proximity or where you sleep at night.
No, it's not.
It requires curating and defending your mental space with as much fierce dedication as your physical actions. It requires the profound bravery to communicate without punishing the truth, and the humbling wisdom to accept that the only person you can ever truly control or change is yourself.
Exactly. It's an inside job. But before we sign off today, we want to leave you with one final, hopefully incredibly inspiring thought. Something to just mull over as you go about your day that builds on the foundation of everything we've talked about.
We spent a lot of time today dissecting warnings about the destructive power of negative manifestation, the immense danger of toxic fantasies,
Yeah, a lot of warnings.
the peril of letting your mind wander away from the person right in front of you. But let's flip the polarity on that entire concept for a moment.
Okay, let's flip it.
If the mental and emotional planes truly make up 80% of our relationship, and if thoughts become things, what incredible heights could a partnership reach if we applied that exact same intense, vivid daily imagination to actively fantasizing about our own partner?
Oh, wow. That's a total inversion.
If the human mind is truly that powerful, what happens when we refuse to use it to build phantoms, and instead we weaponize our imagination for love?
Weaponize it for love.
What if you deliberately, consciously spent your mental energy building up your real partner in your mind, remembering their best moments, anticipating seeing them, imagining their success?
Wow.
Imagine the kind of breathtaking passion and oxygen that would manifest in the physical world if you directed all that processing power back into the relationship. If the green-eyed monster is born of imagination gone wrong, imagine the beauty of an imagination aimed right.
Weaponizing your imagination for love. That is a truly profound thought to walk away with. It changes the entire objective of the game. Remember at the very beginning of this deep dive, we talked about relationships being like a physical structure, but one where all the threats, the pathogens, the rot are completely invisible.
Visible threats attacking the foundation, yes.
Well, it turns out the reinforcement for that foundation is invisible too. It's the silent thoughts you choose to water every single day and the hidden fantasies you choose to starve. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Keep examining the invisible architecture of your life. Keep a close, compassionate eye on your mental real estate. And as always, keep questioning the world around you.